Etymology. I know. Coming in hard today, folks.
That's what she said.
Etymology is the study of where words come from and their changing meanings over time. It looks at the roots of words in older languages, Latin, Greek, Old English, for example, and it follows how these words evolved into what they mean now. So, when learning a word's etymology, you're basically learning where it came from and how we apply it in modern language. So, once again, what the fuck does that have to do with Sleep Token? Well, if you've followed Sleep Token for a while, then you will know by now that Vessel, or the man behind the mask who writes the songs, is a master linguist. He is fantastic at adapting and manipulating language in order to tell us a story in a way that perhaps other lyricists and other wordsmiths can't, particularly in modern music. Now, we've spoken often about how the mask can sometimes help with that, how the anonymity, how the fact that he is a character, the man behind the mask is portraying a character called Vessel, a man who is in love with a deity called Sleep, and it is about the relationship between the two, or at least it can be interpreted in that way, because every one of our interpretations is right, because Sleep Token are a band that have come into being so that each one of us can interpret it in our own way. It becomes a very personal experience listening to a band like this, because the lyrics, the music, how it makes us feel, how it moves us, can all be interpreted differently. As I often say, I could be talking complete bollocks about all of this, but I'm quite happy for my bollocks to sit alongside yours, or something close to that. And so, knowing what a master wordsmith Vessel is, looking at this, the second track from 2019's Sundowning, it isn't offering. It isn't an offering. It's the offering. And offerings, or indeed the word offering, has been used in particular by a lot of different religions over time. And I thought that we'd take a little bit of a dive into that today, because getting to the offering, I think, might be quite important. So, from an etymological perspective, the word offering is descended from Latin. The original Latin word is offere, O-F-F-E-R-R-E, which means to present before someone. It means to put towards someone. And that was then interpreted into Old English. In Old English, we started to use the word offrian, which meant to present, to offer, or to make a sacrifice. See, across ancient cultures, an offering was normally towards a deity, a spirit, or an ancestor. It was a form of exchange, a form of appeasement, or in some cases, of honouring someone or something. Sometimes they were material offerings, sometimes they were sacrificial offerings, and sometimes they were even just symbolic. In Islam, there is the concept of qurban, which means that which brings us closer to God. Indeed, there are nods to Abraham sacrificing his own son for the quote-unquote greater good.
How can this be for the greater good? The greater good.
In Hinduism, it's often offers of flowers or fruit or food, rather like we now associate with the pagan tradition that has been adopted by the Christian church of harvest festival, of bringing everything together and then giving a charitable donation to those who are more needy than you are at a time of plenty. Buddhist offerings are very similar to Hinduism, but sometimes just acts of charity, charitable contributions, using yourself, using your time as charity, using your time, if you like, as an offering. That expands into traditional African religions as well, where sometimes symbolic items or things that had particular significance to the culture itself were given as offerings. And if we are to get a little bit darker for a moment and look into the Aztecs and the Mayans, in their religion's bloodletting, human sacrifice. In fact, human sacrifice has been something that has existed amongst religious cultures for, well, all of time. But that's not to say that the act of giving blood, the act of giving your body, this sagging meat suit that our soul lives in, giving that as an offering to the gods, that wasn't always done. In fact, as culture evolved, human sacrifice has rather been removed from even the thoughts of history. But in terms of human sacrifice, or indeed a human that is to be sacrificed, Well, that rather leads us to Christianity. So in the Old Testament, or indeed the Hebrew Bible, there were burnt offerings, grain offerings, offerings of peace, offerings of sin even. And these offerings therein had various purposes, whether it be atonement or thanksgiving, or maybe dedication, or even covenant affirmation. As you will know from my previous videos where I've taken deep dives into the religious aspects of Sleep Token, the temple in Jerusalem was literally the center of this system. But then we get to the New Testament, and that's rather where Christianity reinterprets offering through Jesus Christ of Nazareth. Christ's sacrifice, Christ's death, is referred to as a once-for-all sacrifice. The sacrifice of the Son of God rather rendered temple sacrifices obsolete. If you like, in a way, the death of Jesus Christ, the death of God's only begotten Son, the giving of Christ's life so that we may live without sin, or rather live in sin but be forgiven, that was God's magnum opus. Many of you will already know the biblical verse John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whomever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. So by giving the offering of his only Son, God was rather telling that he loved the world so much that he was willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. Not an offering, the offering. The man who was 100% man and 100% divine was nailed to a cross as an offering from God so that we may live eternally, at least spiritually. In a way, Jesus of Nazareth was and still is the ultimate offering from a biblical perspective. So, now understanding a little bit of the etymology of the word offering, I would like to put something to you, that an offering sounds like that it is just done, like charity, with nothing expected. But in all of the research that I've done into every time an offering is made, particularly from a religious perspective, there is always something which is expected back. Or the act itself gives the person who is doing it at that time some sort of reward. Now let's not get too vor about this too quickly. An offering is made with the expectation to a deity, or indeed to somebody else, that you will get something back in return. It is not entirely selfless. Giving somebody an offering isn't always a selfless act. And therefore, we need to work out what the balance of power, or what the balance in general here is, with who is giving the offering and who is receiving something then in return. At my first listen of this song, I obviously went down the route of thinking, and I still do, that the majority of it is vessel. It is the man who is in love with a deity called sleep, and we are about to go through the relationship, the musical theatre production that is Sleep Token, the relationship between these two characters, the protagonist and the antagonist. But what are they trying to achieve from each side here? As much as I would love to be able to give a definitive answer, you know I can't. Like I said, all of this could be bollocks, but from this perspective, from thinking about it, I don't believe that this is just one voice speaking to another voice. I don't believe, and the more I listen to Sleep Token, the less I'm inclined to believe that every song is so black and white and so matter of fact that it is one character talking to another through the entirety of this. In fact, I believe that there are a few reins being handed off to different places in the offering, and one of them is musically. See, I believe this is the first time where we truly get to, behind the drum kit, really being given the reins to this song and going, let rip, son. Musically, this song feels very driven by the drums. Even in the breakdown, we'll get to it in the last third. There's plenty of stuff I want to talk about the musical construction of this. But it just feels for the first time in the discography of Sleep Token that we're getting too kind of pushed to the forefront, and he is driving this. But also in terms of the song itself and where it exists in the discography, where it exists in the acts of Sleep Token, the musical, something analytical that I like to look at this as, in order to remain on the outside, to not get so drawn into the fact that, you know, this is just a bloke. It's a bloke sat at home at a piano writing these songs. A brilliant bloke and brilliant songs. But one thing I always think is worth mentioning is try not to become too enveloped in the world. Try and become a little bit more detached and analytical, and therefore you can sometimes dissect the lyrics and the music a little bit more clearly. Because while there is lore at play here, without a doubt, one must remember where these songs came from. And so, to that end, let's look at where the offering sits amongst other songs, because I believe there are two songs directly that this is not influenced by, but connected to. This obviously is song 2 on 2019's Sundowning album, the first album release by Sleep Token, and I believe that this song also shares parallels with track 2 from This Place Will Become Your Tomb, the song called Hypnosis. And in terms of this album, I believe that lyrically, the song is 100% connected to Sugar. I just don't think it's coming from the same perspective. So that's rather the groundwork laid here for the offering. And so we should just fucking watch it. So for those of you who haven't watched one of my videos before, or maybe haven't seen the season premiere of Sundowning with The Night Does Not Belong to God, what I like to do is listen to the song, break down the sigil in the visualizer, and then discuss both the music and the visualizer before moving on to the lyrics. And if you like pulling them away slightly from the musical construction or the melody that they're in, and rather look at the syntax and the construction of it from a monologue perspective, from a dramatic reading perspective, to try and dive in a little bit as to why he uses the words he uses. So let's fucking do it then, shall we? Track 2 from 2019's Sundowning by Sleep Token. This is The Offering. Right, flames and candles to kick us off. And also, this could 100% be a dance song at this point. Always spare a thought for the visualizer.
You are a garden entwined with all. You are the silence on sacred shores. You've got diamonds for teeth.
My diamonds.
Love, so take a bite of
my diamonds.
Just once, I want to turn the page.
And whose voice is speaking when?
Once again.
It's a fuckload to unpack here. Presence of that riff, that synth riff, that piano riff, it's there pretty much the whole song.
This is again an offering in your favor, a sacrifice in your name, but I know you've got a
I think the vocal performance is quite important here as well, in terms of telling the story. Oh, the octaves as well, the jumps between them. The whispers that Two's done all through this track, the way he's expressed himself with the cymbals. Colouring and the candles makes me feel like we're almost doing something occultish. Fuck off, Liam. All right then, so let's talk sigils. Those of you who have been on one of my Twitch streams before will know that we've gone through this. In fact, we spent weeks going through this in like 7 or 8 different parts. These are the sigils. Then this is a breakdown. This is not my document. It is readily available online. I can't remember the original user. It is linked in the document. I will put it in the description of this video below. But we just want to have a look at the significance of perhaps the alchemical symbols that are involved in this sigil. So from this perspective, a crucible, it doesn't really need to be explained there. That is number one here, just on the left-hand side. This triangle here, the crucible with which we are at the first stage of alchemy, meant to burn it off, putrefaction. Let's get rid of all of the dark stuff. We need to see what we're working with here, and in order to do that, we need a vessel or a crucible with which to do that in. So I think we're rather leaning into, and again, if you've watched my video on The Night Does Not Belong to God, perhaps that is not so lore driven. Perhaps that is a nod to the album Sundowning. Perhaps it is a nod to the source wording, the source material, and that maybe it's an ode to a family member, to somebody that has been lost, or indeed maybe it is an internalization to have a look at oneself, to go, well, where did we get lost? Where did we rather become afraid of the day turning into night? So we have a crucible in number one here with which to burn it in the sigil, and then putrefy, the second part, to decompose. I'll just read exactly what the original author has written here. All right, so this one got frustrating due to that little dot we see next to the arrow. I've only found 2 references to this symbol with an added dot. Thank you, Basil, whoever Basil is. Thank you. And both list the meaning as decompose. Now, that would make perfect sense within this example, because we are looking to break down in the first act of alchemy. There are 4 acts of alchemy. If you'd like to read more about them or like to learn more about them, please do go back to my The Night Does Not Belong to God, where I do a little bit of a breakdown of alchemy and alchemical symbols and how they pertain to this album in particular. So we are trying to break down in terms, well, let's think like alchemists for a moment. We're taking lead and we're trying to create gold. And in order to do that, the first thing we have to do is to break down the source material. If we were now going to link that back to Jungian psychology, it is the acceptance of the shadow. It is the dive into the shadow. It is the shattering apart of the fact that we now have our persona, the projection of the ego. The ego just above here is designed to protect what we push below into the shadow. And maybe this is the first step of burning off, if you like, burning off the outside, the casing, the I don't know, the plastic wrapper that is wrapped around our shadow, because we are putrefaction, the first stage in alchemy. And the 3 prongs here as well, I know that there's a little conjecture here by the original author. We looked into this on stream. Those 3 prongs over here on the right hand side are the release of fumes. They are the release of smoke. It is what is given off. Energy cannot be destroyed. It only moves into different elements. When you boil the kettle, you want hot water, but the byproduct there is the steam that's being given off. Even though you are trying to achieve something, even though you have a purpose, or maybe even a common purpose, if we're going to talk about, the collective unconscious that Jung talks about, even though we are all driving towards becoming our essential self, potentially, and even though we all want to be our essential self, as you do that, something is given off. The angels share, the vapor, the byproduct. So then, how does this tie in to the offering? It's almost like we are presenting something of ourselves, something dark, something that that is essentially useless, like alchemists would take. We plunk it in the crucible, and by the acts that we put on it, by the act of, if you like, individuation, if you're going to go down a Carl Jung perspective, or even just if you were to set fire to it, even if you were just to expose it to extreme heat, trying to break it down in order to see what is behind there. What are we working with? So in a sense, from a law or storytelling perspective, maybe the offering is putting something in there. That also implies a passiveness from the protagonist there, that they are putting an offering there, but they are expecting something in return. Anyway, look, we could do this all fucking week. Let's go back to the music, all right? So for the second part of this, once we dive back into the music video, the visualizer, the music, I'm going to be pausing this a lot. I just want to make everyone aware in case they're like, you paused it a lot. Of course I fucking did. How else am I meant to talk about it, you bastards? So straight out the gate, we've got Embers. Those are Embers. That is the release there that's coming up. And obviously now here is the sigil. Why so orange coded? Why orange? Orange is the color that we get from campfires. It's the color that we get from the most primitive form of heating and light that we had, fire. Orange is the color that is if you like, the color scheme that is given to that. If you're going to go into like an art theater perspective, the color scheme of fire is always orange. It is the reflection, not the reflection, rather the hue, the glow that you will see on people's faces while they're stood around a fire. So obviously we are around fire here, but also we have plenty of candles too. Candles normally in churches, candles normally wrapped around, particularly when they're constructed a certain way. Indeed, it can go all the way back to the occult. Like, let's go all the way back to the first fucking music video. Let's go back to EP1. The first thing we saw was a burning candle, but it was white scale then, and now it's orange. It burns with a more intense flame. Perhaps it burns with a bit more passion by now. Also, before we jump ahead, that synth line that pulses at the beginning and indeed goes all the way through the song. I believe it's in B flat. Let me see if I can get this right. Because the top line notes are But it all exists there in that B flat chord. Now, that goes all the way and pulses through the song. It never leaves, I don't think, at all. It's always there echoing in the background. And so, that first thing that makes me think of is, well, this is repetition. This is without ritual in the lyrics, without ritual in the melody, without an expression of a human voice to a deity. Perhaps if we're going to go back to the law perspective, then this is just the voice of the repetition. It is the ritual, the voice of the ritual. But let's take a dive a little bit deeper. Listen to how much 2 is doing behind the... There's so many whispers. This is the way that often many drummers I speak to talk about how Vessel 2 plays. 2 plays. I know people don't like calling... Whatever. Fuck off. My video. Ridiculous. 2 whispers behind. He puts expression into this, and this is a very drum-heavy song. It's driven, but by the way, that doesn't mean that the drums are higher in the mix. George Lever didn't suddenly put the drums front and center in like some central mix, or indeed there was no panning elements to this. It's a traditionally engineered drum kit. The drums are panned in certain directions based on where they're constructed in the kit, but that means that in our right and left ears, sometimes when we're listening to it, objectively you can just hear the whispers, the additions, the color that 2 is adding to this song. There it is. That refrain exists all the time. But this is important.
You are a garden.
And you are a garden. You are a... So we're quite low in the register, and it's quite sultry with the vocal performance. But what I can't unhear now is Vessel, or I do believe that it is the character of Vessel at this point, singing it towards sleep. There is a recognition here in the background musically. It almost sounds like a digital voice, like you were trying to wake up a sleeping robot, or something that maybe you view as robotic. Because please do listen, just as the question, it's not a question, it's a statement. And it's also started with the lyric, we'll get to the music in a second, but listen.
Entwined with... You are a garden.
You are a garden. Yeah. It's like a head turns. It's like somebody wasn't listening and you say out of nowhere, and you are a garden. And they go, what? It's there. It's right there in the mix. It sounds like question mark. Again, I don't believe that anything here is done by accident. So, is this a voice speaking up for the first time? Is this a fire that is brewing inside the protagonist? Are they now reaching out? And does the antagonist, does sleep potentially in this process, hear them for the first time and go, huh? Sorry. You're talking to me. I'm a garden. Well, gardens, as we know, now we've researched Gethsemane, don't always mean that it's a good thing.
Entwined with all, you are the silence.
Production struck all the way back, left room for the vocal performance. Choir, synth choir in the background. So it feels like we're building. And then we... The retraction there on the visualizer, the flames went up and then they came back again. That's important as well, because there are so often that times Vessel will in his vocal performance, the man behind the mask will in his vocal performance do something where he uses the breath, he uses the spit, if you like. Because that's what it is. You're using the saliva in your mouth to create this idea. And why do you make that noise? you do that at a moment where something hurts. I think is that not right to an extent when you go, or you're about to say something that you're really, you suck air through your teeth, cold air pulls through your teeth as you make that noise. Great. The drums are just fucking phenomenal. Hear that cry? That's something that's going to be more prevalent in the second verse than the first verse, and why? There's cries, there's little affectations here. It's almost like his vocal performance is becoming more desperate. The more he sings, the more it becomes more like fucking dramatic. The more it becomes more of, I need something from you. I'm going to offer you something, but I need something in exchange. Please. We're going to get to the lyrics in a second. Fuck me, I can't wait to get to the lyrics. But yeah, it's never discount the way the vocal performance surrounds, encompasses, and pushes the narrative of the song as well.
Offering in your favor.
He also says offering.
Sacrifice in your name, but I know you've got to say so. Just take.
Everything has been forward placed. All of the vocal line has been forward placed, even though it's crying, it's on voice, what we call on voice. I'm speaking right now on voice. If I was to go off voice, that was what I would sound like. So on voice is the activation of your real speaking voice, being off voice. Sometimes people call it stage whisper, when you're really you're speaking, but you're not meant to be heard. So that's exactly what he does. He draws it back and goes into something that is more sensual than it was before. He was singing and not begging, but he was really proclaiming something there in the beginning of this second verse. And then all of a sudden, we go back to a whisper. Like it's something that is said in the ear, in bed, like it's something that is said in order to coerce, something that is meant to bring a more romantic or a more physical element to the way that one is using one's voice.
But I know you've got to say so. Just take a bite of me.
The bass is also doing something quite nice underneath, where it is supporting the melody line, moving way up the neck and actually pushing through into, once there is more support here and once he moves up into his upper range, the bass is actually, the way it's been written is offering support. And I think the guitar line follows it as well. That's something that we're going to see a little bit more in the breakdown, is the levels of where we can move in octaves in order to offer an emotional response musically to the melody and the lyrics that are being sung. So those riffs are important as well, because we've not had those up to this point. No, when he's falling off the kind of the 90s pop scales, the affectations there with the melody. What that's doing is adding additional emotional, or rather it's contextualizing. If somebody sings the word no, regardless of whether or not they're throwing it in as an ad lib. And this is something that Sleep Token will do quite often. There's lots of no's. Vessel Live will throw in a lot of no's and do lots of riffs around the original melody. In fact, we've seen it, with Provider on the most recent tour, where everyone got, slightly wet knickers over it. And that's fair enough. So with the idea of it going, with the idea of him doing these, like pop Christina Aguilera-esque riffs running off the end of the note, it's making us feel like he's really diving into it. No, he's really feeling where. But I think that in terms of the musicality of this, he's getting himself in the zone. He's getting himself emotionally prepared for what's about to happen, but we'll get to that in a minute. That split melody line there with that top note. And now we breathe. But before we do, I'd like to talk about that. I want to. Who wants to? Vessel? Or is it Sleep? Who's saying that? Who's saying I want to? Because who's saying that has significance. What if it's both people? Let's now talk about this very adult-like and go, this is an offering. He is presenting himself as an offering. Now, we're going to dive into slightly some of the intricacies of that in the lyrics in a moment. But in terms of musically, it sounds like he is rather now, the vessel, has presented himself musically to the god. And it's gone from a little bit purposeful into now being more lusty. And now it's more focused. And now it seems that a cock of the eyebrow and a little bit of eye contact is coming and saying, I want to. This is an agreement. We're entering into a bargain together. I am going to offer myself to you in your favor, but I expect something in return. But musically, this reminds me most of Jaws, because now we are in a prey and predator situation. Now, whether or not the prey is willingly going into this wanting to be prey, and that indeed could be the resolution from the offering itself, or is it an offering in order to indulge a third party? Does the protagonist want the antagonist to feast on them, so then we'll get retrospectively favor, it will curry favor for them? Or maybe we just want to give them a bite because it fucking feels good. Or maybe we know that the antagonist has to take something from us, like in a vampiric nature, that they have to bleed us, that they have to take what we're offering to them in order for them to stay alive, to succeed, to whatever. Maybe we can only ascend if we protect the shadow. Maybe we need to be on the same page. We need to find that balance. I know Sleep Token is all about balance, and I speak about that in my earlier videos where I talk about that there's fundamentally, relationship-wise, there is an imbalance between these two people. So within offerings, within levitating, within all of these songs that we get over the next 45 songs that we've got left to go, we have to find the balance. How are we together, potentially, when using the works of Carl Gustav Jung, how are we going to come together and create one essential self? So, in that respect, I view this as an offering. This is a man who, with his riffs, every one of the riffs go down. Everyone musically goes down the scale. Therefore, I can see physically, almost like in my mind's eye of a music video or whatever, that this is somebody that has fallen to their knees and they've given up and they've said, I want, come take a bite of me. Come on. I'm literally here in amongst the candles on the floor. If you get my gist, I am ready to be taken. And in this breakdown, I think it's one of the most beautiful musical ways. It feels like the prey. Whether or not, because we don't really know, we can take a huge, a load of different, very, deep interpretations of this on who is the prey and who is the predator. But in this instance, it feels like our protagonist has thrown themselves to the ground, and now the predator is circling. The bend on that note. That's why it's not just one note. We're ever so slightly, we're getting a Dutch angle here. We're getting the lean into, this is slightly off-putting, this is slightly off-putting, this is slightly off-putting. It doesn't feel entirely comfortable because of the bend in that note. I want to go back to the live version to hear some of this, because there are voices underneath there. Not take a bite. Take a bite. It runs up at the end. It's a moment almost of euphoria from the protagonist. Going, right, you've circled around me. Imagine all of these big teeth, these monsters, these whatever, this deity, this huge black cloud around you that's about to rend. You're fucking ready for it. You want to be the offering, not an offering, not a previous vessel, not potentially the vessel that you had to destroy in Nazareth, not just another notch on the bedpost. You are the offering. You want to be the one that steps beyond the precipice, that pulls the mask away. Oh, it's fucking brilliant. Anyway, let's go back to the breakdown. He almost howls it. So, the first time round, the guitar plays the riff. I believe it's on an open string. I think it's in B flat, so it might be tuned down to B flat on the top string on a 5-string, well, an 8-string guitar, 5-string bass. So we've got an open note, I think, playing, and then we go up the octave for that weird run, and then the second time round, it jumps down the octave. So we get for euphoria, and then we fall down into the darkness, and then we get euphoria again, and then we pull down. So what we're getting is different levels here, maybe different levels of, I don't know, of having a bite taken of you. Maybe we're leading into, potentially vor stuff in the future. Maybe, but it feels like a frenzy, and frenzy is going to be used so much in Sleep Token in the future. We are in a feeding frenzy. That's what this feels like. The monsters, the sharks have circled, and now a participant, a willing participant, has not just said, take a bite. It's, I am the offering. So go back up the octave now on the guitar. Now we go down the octave. Naughty. This is where it gets a bit weird. I've never once, since the third time of listening to this song, not accidentally, and I put this to the stream on Twitch. Again, if you want to ever join us on Twitch, we've been through loads of this. We talk about this a lot in depth. We talk about sigils, you go through albums, all that stuff. If you want to join us, you can, or don't. Free range human, do what you want. But when I put it to the community, did anybody else sing the melody from Hypnosis over the end of the offering? It turned out I wasn't the only one, because that melody line of you hypnotize me always sits very nicely in the second stanza, the bar 3 and 4, I think, the repeated phrase in the outro of the offering. I can't unhear it now. If anybody does do the same thing, please let me know. But that would be very interesting in itself, because this is our track 2 from both Sundowning and Hypnosis, being track 2 of Tomb. I don't know. There is this idea of entering a state of higher consciousness that perhaps when one is choosing to be devoured, when one is offering oneself as an offering, whether it be physical or maybe even mental or spiritual as well, that I'll give you everything. We're back to fucking David Bowie in Labyrinth again.
Fear me, love me, do as I say, and I will be your slave.
And in that respect, then is there an argument for saying that this is the voice of sleep rather than the voice of vessel in terms of this lore as well? That piano synth line, it haunts the background of this outro. And 2's just fucking destroying the kid. So good. So good. And we fade out. And as we've rather discussed before with Sleep Token, when a song fades out, in a sense, it means that repetition is happening. It means that fuck off, Liam. It means that we are in a cyclical nature, that we have not broken the cycle, that the cycle is to continue. But it could just be us bleeding out, for want of a better term. Fuck me, that's dark. Bleeding out on a situation where the protagonist is being devoured by the antagonist, whether it be spiritually and whether it be mentally, or whether it is just an interpretation of that, or maybe it is an actual kink, for want of a better term. Maybe there is something that comes from the protagonist, whether it be the man behind the mask or indeed the character. Maybe there is something that leads us to Vor. Maybe there is something that there is a desire to be consumed. Because once you've been consumed, then you can be inside someone like nobody else has before. And so, folks, to the lyrics, arguably my favourite bit of all of these videos, because you really get to dive in and pull away at the threads, the stories, the lore, and what we're being told objectively by the writer, the man behind the mask, the protagonist in this piece. Or maybe he isn't always the protagonist. That is open to interpretation. And we start this all off with, oddly enough, a conjunction. And a coordinating conjunction, a linking word, bread and butter, jam and honey. It is not to be used, and Vessel would absolutely be marked down on his GCSEs in English language if he started a sentence, but it's the implication of it, but it's the way he delivers it, because he rather leans into it slightly. It just becomes, you are a god. We get new, really, but it is there in black and white, and you are a garden entwined with all. You are the silence on sacred shores. You've got diamonds for teeth, my love. So take a bite of me just once, comma, I want to breath. Now this is where it gets interesting. So, and you are a garden. Well, the most famous garden of all time is indeed the Garden of Eden, and one can understand why that would be relevant, considering in 2 albums' time we're going to get to Take Me Back to Eden. So, in that respect, if indeed, and lots of people have different theories about what Eden means and what Eden can even mean if it was a person, if it was a previous vessel, but that is where our brain kind of goes to straight away. And you are a garden entwined with all. So that means, rather like Et in Arcadia Ego, that is a memento mori, that death shall follow us wherever we go. This is where we're entwined again. We are tangled like branches in a flood. There is always a sense of entanglement with Vessel and Sleep in some ways. In fact, I mean, you could, again, if you want to talk about it in the comments, there are so many levels of entanglement in different lyrics that Vessel presents over, again, the next 3 albums, this one, and 3 more albums. You are the silence. You are not just silence, you are the silence on sacred shores. So shores that are considered sacred, but by whom? Because something which is sacrilegious to one person is not sacrilegious to another. That's rather the nature of it. That's rather the idea of religions and spiritual and beliefs that we all have in society functioning alongside each other's. So if you are the silence on sacred shores, does that mean you are stillness? You are peace? You are a garden entwined with all. You are everywhere. You are everything. You are all encompassing, but you are also the peace. You are the quiet on sacred shores. You've got diamonds for teeth, my love. Now, diamond's incredibly precious, so that's a consideration as to why he's used this here. The fact that it's almost like a grill of diamonds, if you like. Uncut diamonds are sharp, and therein, diamonds are one of the hardest materials in the world. So is that saying you've got diamonds for teeth, my love, i.e. you have got the strongest jaw there is. You can destroy everything with that mouth. Show me what them diamonds do. So take a bite, and this is where it gets truly interesting. Firstly, my love. So there is previous here, because nobody would call anyone my love. And if we're going to go back to the, you are a garden, what? Right? That little, so are we trying to, in a way, like coerce? Are we trying to, make it sound, hey, I'm going to tell you really nice things about yourself, and then maybe you'll like me more. Maybe there's an element of that to it. You've got diamonds for teeth, my love. So take a bite of me. And this is where you can pull this apart to try and understand the syntax and what it means. Because it could be, so take a bite of me just once, full stop. Next line. I want to turn the page once again. But it doesn't run like that. It runs like, so take a bite of me just once. And then it's sung differently. I know a lot of people subsequently go back and listen to the record 41. I'm allowed to say record. Listen to the song, the track, after they've watched these videos. So just listen to the way that the delivery of the vocal changes there. So take a bite of me just once. I want to, and then we get into that lyrical falsetto. Turn the page once again. So, if he does just want you to take a bite of me just once, just do it once, come on, just give me something, take a bite of me. Maybe that exists on its own. I want to turn the page once again, but I want to isn't definitive. That's what I want as a character in this production, as a person in this relationship, as half of a relationship. I want to turn the page once again. When the fuck did we turn the page the first time? How many pages have already been turned? Is this a narrative, again, to go back from a Jungian perspective, is this potentially a narrative to sleep coming up and saying, come on, if you turn this page, it just gets easier every time. What's that fucking brilliant BoJack Horseman quote?
It gets easier.
Huh?
Every day it gets a little easier.
Yeah?
But you gotta do it every day. That's the hard part. But it does get easier.
So repetition, so doing it again, maybe that helps. It becomes easier every time. Maybe the more we turn the page, maybe sleep or the shadow speaking to the ego is saying, come on, just turn it again. You can do it. Come on. I trust me. I can help you through this, which is why sometimes I think sleep gets a bad rap, because I don't think they are always there from a negative point of view. But it's once again. This has happened before. The cycle must end. Where did the cycle begin? Because it sounds to me like before EP1 and EP2, there was, again, right, songwriter, man sat at home in his pants, all that shit. He's written these as love songs, as torch songs, as odes. So it isn't just looking at it from a law perspective as well. Take a bite of me, the metaphorical meaning of that. So do you want to take something from me? Hurt me, maybe? Has there been hurt from the other side? Does this, in a law perspective, still nod back to Nazareth? Because it's certainly about to nod to another song in a second. Turn the page once again, and then take a bite. And in verse 2, We get it. Much more emotional, much more charged with the deliver. This is a given. A given is something which is assert, nailed on, absolutely going to happen. A given, something that happens over and over again. Well, that's a given. It's a given that the sun will rise tomorrow. It's a given that the sun will go down at the end of the day. It will recede once again. That is a given. So to be told potentially from our protagonist that this is a given, an offering, not the offering, an offering in your favor, a sacrifice in your name. Now that gives me a total idea of detachment there, because this is the protagonist, the man behind the master vessel, now saying, it's a sacrifice in your name. I'm not giving the sacrifice directly to you. I am sacrificing something in honor of you. Right? Because that's why it would be in your name. And this is where it gets really good. But I know you've got a taste, so just take a bite of me. The taste has already been developed. Something has already happened wherein that tasting has happened. The vampire has potentially tasted blood without bleeding their victim. Potentially something has happened in the past where there has been, I don't know, kinky elements, maybe that sort of thing. So I know you've got a taste. Gee, I wonder what other song talks about developing tastes. And then we go back to the soft refrain. Turn the page once again. Is this another voice coming back? Is this still our hero? Is it still the protagonist, the vessel, saying that they want to turn the page? Is it turning the page in a relationship? Is it maybe a reach out to somebody who doesn't reciprocate with their love, with their affection, with an imbalance in the relationship? And you're asking, no, let's turn the page to move to the next part of our relationship. Let's move this along. I want to see behind the mask, as so often is alluded to. Let me in. But I don't think that's always vessel. I think there's an argument for the shadow to talk back and say, no, you need to let me in. You need to turn the page. Otherwise, you're never going to become your essential self. Anyway, could be. Turn the page once again and give up the game and let me in. Gee, I wonder what song talks about playing games. Somehow now the significance of sugar within the tasting process, the significance of sugar, i.e. glucose, is carried around via our blood. Glucose is carried throughout our system via blood. There is so much vampiric illusion here. There is so much that could be, I don't know, construed as this is a real act of biting. This is a real act of two people who maybe have that, and that's a way that they come together. Maybe that's one of the acts that pushes them back together into an essential self. I don't know. My arms belong around you, so take a bite. I want to know. Brilliant. My arms belong around you. That's almost like a desperation, a Hail Mary. That my arms belong around you. It's supported then by very rich harmony in the track as well. So we go from give up the game and let me in. Stop doing this. My arms belong around you, and then we get the kind of like, I don't know, your eyes turn black in the low light. You press the big red button. All of a sudden, it takes a suddenly more sinister element, both musically and lyrically here. So take a bite. I want to know. And then we get into that final breakdown. So what do the lyrics tell us any more out of context? I don't think a huge amount more than they do within the lyrical construction, the musical construction, the melodic construction, indeed, that they are in the song. However, I am interested into the balance of little things like take a bite of me just once. I want to. I am really interested as to where the voices are coming from. And indeed, you can chat away in the comments if you'd like to let me know. Please do. I've got bloody allergic to this dog. The heating's on and it's allergy season around here, so lovely. So yes, indeed, if you have any thoughts, any ideas, please do pop them in the comments below. Of course, if you'd like to give the video a like and do all that subscribe-y stuff, that would be lovely. We're on Twitch too, all the time, if you want to go and do that. On screen now are my Ko-fi supporters. If you don't know Ko-fi, it's just like it's Patreon, but you know there's less fees and it's a bit less mad. These are the people who are my monthly members who have supported me over the last few months as I've set off on this journey and like really dived into music and lyrics and actually taking the stuff that I've learned throughout my career and trying to repurpose it into, I don't know, video essays in terms of, and not everything's as long as the Sleep Token videos. If you do want to become a subscriber, there's plenty of other bands there on there. We've been diving into Bad Omens, The Warning, exploring Birdsong. We've done, you know, we're getting into to new territory, but it's because I love music and I love lyrics, and this really fires me up, and I really have a good time making these videos for everybody. So yeah, you can support me on Ko-fi as well. You can become a member. You get access to the members section, which has a members only Discord, which is just full of people who are far more intelligent than I am, talking about fucking art and music and coding and lyrics, and it's just brilliant, way more intelligent than I am. But it also means that you can support me. It means I can spend more time making these videos. And yeah, so next one is levitate, which we'll have to dive into the definition of levitation as well, and why that was chosen as song titles. Again, everything in Sleep Token, I believe, is done for a reason. I don't think they leave anything to chance, or by now we would have been, you know, not running around like headless chickens trying to work out different, I don't know, quizzes and stuff that they've given us. But that's partly why I love it. It is an interactive band, and we are living it in real time. We are living one of probably what will be looked back on in history as one of the most seminal British bands maybe of all time. I know the music industry is changing every day, but let's see if we can get in before AI ruin everything, yeah? I think that'll be all right. So I shall see you for the next one. Please do, if you want to like, subscribe, all that shit. You're free range human. Do what you want. Anyway, yeah, thank you for watching it. Thank you for making it this far. Jesus Christ, well done. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you for the next one.